All right. So today is episode 15 of the Super Dangerous Crub. Crub? Oh God, am I having a stroke? Oh God, I am slurring my words. This is what happens when you drink a can of Monster exactly 30 seconds before the episode begins. Oh, well, anyway, I tried to keep a straight mouth and a straight face, but it doesn't matter. I'm just waiting for my co-host to arrive, actually, Joe Fisher. We have opened the room. Joe, can you hear me? You are in the room. Wow.
Wow, am I in the
Hello?
room? Hello?
Hello, Joe.
Hello, I can hear you.
Is your club deck also muted as well?
I don't
Try
think so.
unmuting it. Huh? What's that? Okay, we are currently experiencing some technical difficulties from my own brain, from the club deck, and this is completely messing up the recording. I hope you guys find
You can't hear me at all?
Hey, oh, you're saying something. Well, try that again.
Hello?
Hey, I can hear you. I think I was in the wrong jack again. Try that again.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. I heard that. Try again.
Hello?
Oh, thank God. Everyone is here. Everything is working. We're already a minute into the recording, and we are literally shit the bed on a mental and technical level.
Hey, guess what?
Yeah?
You just referenced fecal matter less than 30 seconds into the show.
Exactly, and intentionally. I was going to try and avoid it this week, but we just totally shit the bed on that one. And we're ready to start. Joe Fisher, welcome to episode 15 of the Super Dangerous Show. And today's episode topic is called...
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That was really... That was our best intro ever.
Really?
By far. That was by far the best intro ever.
Maybe I should just drink Monster before every freaking episode. Maybe I should get sponsored.
You're drinking that stuff? Oh, no.
I mean, I had a can in the fridge. Basically, I've had to use public transport this week, which is the first time I've had to do it in a long time. No, seriously, I know that's hilarious. Like, look, this is my first world problems here, okay? Crypto millionaire. Oh, God, chums, I have to get on a public bus and use a public train. How does one do that exactly?
I love it. I have this vision of you like standing outside the door of like the bus or the train and like staring at the handle that you have to grab and thinking about the thousands of dirty hands that have touched it, just thinking to yourself like, oh no. And then you try to figure out how to get into the bus without touching the handle. I can visualize you doing that.
Literally, it's some kind of dignified crab walk that I've adopted to stop myself from touching the uncouth and spoiled bodies of my fellow men.
That's so funny. So why were you taking public transit?
So all those issues I mentioned about the car with the engine light going on, I took it in for repairs. Fortunately, it seems like it's just a solenoid, but I had to go without my car for a couple of days. So my usual commute to work, which would normally, it's a good 30 miles away. So it's like, UK time, it's probably about an hour commute. Yeah, basically I had to use trains and buses, and actually it was not so bad. I was like, actually, I might make more of a thing of this in the future, especially having just seen how high the price of petrol's been going recently.
Oh, yeah. So check this out. So this is where I'm going to get canceled by everyone who's not based in the United States. I paid, for the first time in my human life, I paid $5 per gallon. That's per, I believe, imperial gallon, which I know is so cheap. You've never paid it that cheap, probably. Just last night, and so the here at a lot of petrol stations, there's a limit to how much fuel you can pump per credit card or per card transaction, and it's usually capped at $75. And my entire adult life, no matter what vehicle I've ever owned, I can always fill the vehicle's tank all the way up to full for less than $75. It never, you know, it never clicks off before the fuel tank is full. And last night, for the first time ever, my tank was not full. I hit $75, and I just thought to myself, the world is ending.
Oh my God. Okay.
I took pictures of it. I was like taking pictures of it and sending it to people, being like, here it comes, boys. Well, here it comes.
So for me, the equivalent would be, let's see, not quid. It'd be about $120 to fill up my tank from empty. I've worked rough using what you've just said.
How big is your tank, though?
Well, it's like a 2-liter. So yeah, I mean, you know what? It's just insane. If it keeps going up and up and up, and I'm completely braced for the fact that it will, then actually public transport might be more of a common thing when it's like doable. Because, you know, one thing that's super inconvenient about shift work and public transport.
What's that?
Yeah, that there's no buses or trains that operate in the dead of night. So
exactly.
It's like, you know, it's great if you have a 9-to-5 job. Actually, you know, commuting through public transport to my job would be pretty straight. Well, would be a bit more inconvenient, but not hugely, and certainly would be cheaper. But yeah, I feel sorry for anyone who's commuting on a non-standard sort of hours contract or a shift pattern. You guys are, you know, it's going to have to tighten up the belts and get prepped for an increase in the cost of living elsewhere. Food, electricity, heating, everything is going to go up. So disposable income is probably going to go down unless you are super rich or you've been planning for this. And I mean, not planning for this as in you're Vladimir Putin, as in you're waiting to send your troops across the border. I mean, you are the resolute prepper that is ready for every freaking disaster. Joe.
When I hear you, as soon as you said disaster, this is so ridiculous. As soon as you said the phrase ready for disaster, it instantly wiped the memory I had in my brain of what I was trying to say. Like it wiped it.
Really?
Like, it's almost, you ever see Men in Black? Where, you know, the government, Men in Black would like erase your short-term memory so you couldn't remember seeing the aliens all the time. That's literally what happened.
Word that I just accidentally stumbled on.
Yeah.
You've been brainwashed by the CIA, and that's the thing that mind wipes you.
As soon as you said disaster, it just wiped my brain, and all I could think of was like, do I have enough aluminum foil and like dried beans? I'm not even exaggerating. That's like seriously what happened in my brain. Well, what I was doing is I was going to make a comment. Okay, I'm looking at my tabs that are open. This is refreshing my memory. So apparently you're paying around $6 per gallon, which does not seem right. That seems like that's lower than I would have thought. I thought that your fuel prices were like double what I'm accustomed to paying.
I mean, it's probably like 30% more. But I guess maybe you guys have had it going up in taxes stealthily more than we have.
I thought that. So, okay, if you're paying, let's see here, petrol soar. Okay, independent petrol soar is about $2 a liter in UK. But see, a liter is not the same as the US gallon. So, are you paying? Man.
See, I did not want to profess my ignorance of the imperial units, good chum.
It's different. Let's see here. Oh, I'm trying to use this. I think I mentioned this last time. I'm trying to use this non-Google web browser called Ecosia. It's kind of cool. It supposedly plants trees. It's seriously telling me I've planted like 300 trees, which doesn't sound possible. But when I do the simplest searches, it gives me absolute bupkis. And when I type in the exact same search into Google, it tells me exactly what I want to know. It's just so frustrating.
You cannot escape the beast. The beast is always there. And if anything, this is actually secretly the theme of today's episode. Ooh, did you get a chance to check the show notes beforehand?
I did not.
Okay, so I'm going to read to you the title of this episode, and then I want your initial
10 minutes in.
Oh, no, it's fine. Right. Is the metaverse a metaphor for fractal capitalism? Thoughts?
Oh, my gosh. Did you say fractal capitalism?
Yeah.
Where was that term coined? Because that's a good term.
I literally invented it last night in the particle forums when we were discussing some shit. I was
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Oh no, you should check. I think it's off topic. Off topic in the particle forums is now literally just a very complicated discussion about the Russia-Ukraine war.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God, there's so much chatter in there. You cannot escape it. I tried to escape it.
You can't escape it. I know you can't escape it.
But I mean, so how did we wind up with that phrase, fractal capitalism? I'll just read to you the thread that led to this. So I think it was like one of the members in there, I think it was Typhoon Cyberpunk. He was talking about corporations one day sort of wielding conventional arms. And then someone disagreed with him.
Just like the old times.
Yes. Oh, really? Tell me more.
I mean, I don't know that much about it, but it's my understanding that at least in the earlier parts of the United States, that there was very little distinction between armaments held between private, corporate, or government interests. And so, you actually had privateers and you had groups basically utilizing the strongest armaments possible at the time to try to protect their shipping or their products or their farms or whatever. So yeah, it all sounds so wholesome to think of it happening 200 years ago. But when I think of it in the future, I think like, Cyberpunk 2049 corpos with their like private assassins and shit like that. So
yeah, so this is exactly what I'm getting at, right? So what you said is true, actually, especially in the US. I mean, I remember watching a bunch of documentaries and they all relate to union busting and how corporations would hire private security firms that would be armed to the teeth and would deliberately go out and assault these people or incite riots or do whatever to suppress. In fact, Billy the Kid, one of your country's famous icons, he was literally a guy. He was just an outlaw for the sole purpose that he was waging a guerrilla warfare style campaign on a small town that was owned by a corporation that had fucked him over. That's literally it. So, you're right. There's a long history of corporations being entwined with security, with policing, and with armies. And if you think of any mercenary movement, the entire concept of mercenaries is essentially private security guards who are for hire.
Yeah, exactly. Who often find themselves doing the dirtiest work in the world.
Yeah. And, I keep thinking, what is it, Halliburton? Anyway, I don't think I'm well informed enough on this to give specific examples. I just remember coming across so many over time. But I mean, going to the point, so someone disagreed with him and I was like, yeah, warfare doesn't have to be conventional in any sense. Economic, currency, and information wars are fought by and between corporations daily. And then this other guy.
Okay, that voice is amazing.
Thank you. You should work. You should actually go to work with me sometime. Sometimes I just slip into these voices for the hell of it.
I would love to hear you seriously, like at the bedside of a patient that has they're going to be okay, but like they're seriously hurt. Yeah. And you show up and you like pull that shtick of like being, so hipster blasé that you are like annoyed at even taking the moment to breath the words of what's going on. Uh-huh. That would be free. I would laugh my ass off. That would pretty much make me instantly 100% better if I was in the hospital.
Let me try. Why are you here? I just had to get out from the cinema because I was watching The Batman and it was just so emo, and you totally just had to crash your car and then, force my colleagues to phone me up and say, Dr. Capel, we need your help, man. We can't handle this. And now I'm here looking at you and you look fine because my guys did the best job anyway. Thank you, guys, but not thank you. I'm going to go back and watch the rest of Batman now. But do me a favor, when you get out of here, could you watch it too, especially the part that I missed, and give me a summary?
Oh, man, that's pretty good.
Okay. So, going straight back, focusing in, got to focus, Joe. I noticed you're really quiet today. Have you pepped up yet? Have you had your coffee?
I'm having it right now. And so if you hear this sound, that's the sound of my glass straw and my stainless mug.
Wow.
I don't think I'm being quiet, am I? Is my microphone hot enough?
No. Your voice is... I'm just used to you saying more, engaging. You know, I'm used to your brain firing off at like 300 miles an hour. And I think today we've done a role reversal.
I'll spool up. I mean, I'm sure it'll spool up with time for sure. But you know, this is the first time today I've used my voice.
Wow.
So,
it's throwback to like our first episode. Ooh, thank you. You guys go check that out if you're new to this, by the way. So going back to the topic. Yes, it's only, in my opinion, it's only the matter of the time before corporations become much more active in conventional contexts. I'd argue private security firms, to represent corporate interests, will likely evolve as nation states become more unstable and insolvent. How'd that go?
That's pretty good.
Thanks.
So it's funny. I'm immediately imagining private corporate security actually being as much cyber based as logistically physical based. In fact, maybe more so cyber based. Imagine when the first popular revolts happen in virtual space. Imagine that.
Oh God.
Oh yeah, it's coming, buddy. It's coming. It's gonna happen. People will think the greatest form of like civil disobedience against some type of crushing oppressive foe is going to be to have a, like, you know, Gangnam style dance off in the metaverse on, you know, in front of, like, you know, the Meta headquarters. That's going to be the strongest form of civil protest. And are we ready?
And we're ready. We will be so ready. And as a throwback, we'll be so ready that we'll be like doing our Gangnam style dances and waving our placards whilst the food tube is continuously delivering to our mouths. We'll be going, whoop, indeed. Kind of choking a little each time as we go, whoop, slow it down. And eventually, we'll be doing that whilst the Amazon delivery guy is quietly jerking us off because he's got the keys to our house and he's just paid us a visit to deliver more food in a sloughy material that will go through a goo tube to our mouths. That is the metaverse, people.
You know, it's funny. I would like to rewatch Ready Player One, because I think Ready Player One was really prophetic when you think about it in a lot of ways.
Why weren't more of the IRL people in that film, why weren't they all, I think, either horrendously anorexic or morbidly obese? There were just too many good-looking people in real life in that film.
Because Hollywood really wants to, make everyone feel really good about themselves, I think.
I mean, if Mark Zuckerberg watched that movie, but it was more realistic, I think maybe he would have hesitated before rebranding.
You know, it's funny. I actually... Interestingly enough, some people, I'm not saying me, because I'm not this person, sadly, but some people actually are exercising more because of this.
You've said this before.
I know. I'm thinking even back to my father before he passed away.
Okay.
My dad got hardcore addicted to World of Warcraft like a long time ago, probably like the late aughts, the late 2000s. And he was super into it. And so he'd go to work a day job, and, you know, he would still go out and do stuff with friends, but he played WoW a lot. And because he wanted to exercise, he rigged up a platform so he could walk a treadmill while playing WoW and going on raids. And sometimes he'd walk like so many miles in a day. And and you could hear it. Like if I go to visit, I'd hear the sound of this treadmill going ronk, 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 ronk. And he'd be on a headset being like casting intimidating shout. It was the funniest thing. And I was like, you know what? I can't shit on this. Like, I can't say anything bad about this.
That's
like,
actually
the man just walked 14 kilometers while killing some shitty boss in this shitty game.
Yeah, I actually think that's kind of cool. And actually, thank you for reminding me about this, because you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe it will just accentuate people's natural tendencies. Maybe there'll just be weird settings in this metaverse. It's like Yeah, I want the low physical activity setting. I want the regular one. I want the up. Yeah.
I've actually already heard, I mean, I'm not going to dig for it now. But I've already heard of people. So, okay. in the northern 2/3 of my country, the USA, the America, the northern 2/3 of my country, during the wintertime, the first big snow is when like a plethora of heart attacks happen, because a bunch of people that are really sedentary suddenly have to shovel their cars out of snow for the first time of the season. They're out of shape. They're out of shape. They didn't wake up 1 minute earlier to deal with the snow. They have to shovel 1,000 kilograms of snow in order to get their car free. And so they shovel themselves into a heart attack. And it's a time period where thousands of people get heart attacks to like the day of the first snow. It also and typically, I don't know the statistics. I know that you do, but I know typically men are usually much more likely to suffer from a heart attack. But like the amount of women that get heart attacks during this time period is also like really, really high. And so I've actually heard of people having like quote unquote cardiac events already because they're getting hyperstimulated in virtual space.
See,
so
we're like surprise me.
Yeah. We're at the cusp of like a different type of medicine. Okay. This is going to get really funny. There's going to be people like, there's going to be people training other people in virtual space, like street medics in virtual reality. Like this is going to happen. It's going to be ways to like, oh no, Cap is raging too hard in this, online anti-meta protest on the Metaverse campus. And so I'm going to like run up to you and like, press some button inside my controller that like takes you and me into a room full of like pillows and like a puppy rainbow. I'm not even joking. This is going to happen.
It wouldn't surprise that's actually a really fascinating idea. So it's the idea that when you're in the metaverse and something happens to you physically, maybe you are having a heart attack. Oh man, what happens then? I guess the paramedics come along in real life and the metaverse life. You must have this entire disengaging sequence so that you don't get shell shocked by the sudden detachment from reality, assuming you're not, assuming if you're very highly immersed in this little space. And then I guess while you're disconnected, you're going to be wheeled off somewhere. Oh man, I guess you're going to need to deal with metaverse withdrawal syndrome as well. You're going to have metaverse junkies,
imagine the advertisements saying something to the effect of did you have to experience the real sky for more than 2 hours today?
Oh my God.
and there's going to be
the best one is like, oh, are you suffering from metaverse withdrawal syndrome? Check into Metaverse Withdrawal Syndrome Clinic today, only in the metaverse.
Yeah. So basically, at work, in your giant Amazon distribution center, while you're at work, instead of going into the meditation booth to urinate into your water bottle, which is what everyone's using them for, you'll go to your meditation booth to urinate in your water bottle while getting your quick fix of metaverse inside of like a smuggled, like tiny, VR headset. And so you'll be so what you'll see is like a jungle view with like this like big dinosaur that you created that's like flying around, and it's flying around having a conversation with some weird metaverse jet that's flying around talking to your dinosaur, and you're going to hear the sound of a waterfall, and that's the only way that you can urinate into your drink bottle, which you've covered with a marker so people don't know that it's urine. And if somebody asks you if it's urine, you're going to say it's actually a protein shake, it's a protein drink. And because you only usually urinate when you're at home.
What if they
the
ask
sound of the
for
waterfall?
A taste, I mean, that's a weird thing to ask for, but what excuse do you make? No, it's my protein shake, bro. Seen the prices skyrocketing lately?
Did you ever see the movie Dumb and Dumber? One of my favorites.
No, I can't remember it. Tell me what you're thinking
It's
about.
this. It's the Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey, and
Yeah.
they're driving the dog van, and they get pulled over by the cop, and they've been urinating in beer bottles, and the cop thinks that they're drinking and takes a swig. Yeah, it's pretty funny. You should.
Oh, God.
It's a good movie.
Oh,
it's a good movie.
I was just thinking about this actually. So if you did get sick, what if your dependency on the metaverse was so bad that there'd be an entire algorithm for sort of physically treating your entire body, you know, literally transporting it and then doing all of the treatments in real world whilst you're still plugged in and completely unaware.
Oh, that's going to happen.
And then the whole simulation would just be like, oh, I'm in the metaverse experiencing myself going to hospital. And you just completely forget that you're that there was a real world underneath it all anyway.
I mean, here you go. I mean, so you just made me think of something crazy. So because you and me are way busy in our lives and we don't have time for more wackiness, I'm just going to give this one away. So people already go to great lengths to try to do like crazy weird things, right? Like people jump out of airplanes, they go cliff diving, they go into those weird what do they call that, like cryotherapy chambers, they go to sensory deprivation tanks. Imagine like very, very good VR while you're inside of a sensory deprivation tank. Imagine the kind of like reprogramming you could do on somebody in like 60 minutes inside that context. That could quite possibly be one of the new, I mean, mushrooms may not be needed. That might be one of the new places where, you know, medicine can be practiced or at least, you know, psychiatric medicine can be practiced, because if you could remove the stimulus from the body and then also give people a feeling of floating and weightlessness, and then also put them in a very curated, VR space. Like, what the hell? Like, that could be highly addicting and highly powerful, I think.
God. Okay, so this is all leading into something. It's really weird that we're talking about this because it kind of... remember what I said about fractal capitalism? How did we get to this phrase? So
correct.
For those who are only just joining us, I'm going to go to the very first paragraph because this is a very short sequence of paragraphs. Basically, so as I said, Typhoon, Cyberpunk, and Particle Forums, discussing with someone else, I jump in. Warfare doesn't have to be conventional in any sense. Economic, currency, and information wars are fought by and between corporations daily. In my opinion, it is only a matter of time before corporations become much more active in conventional contexts. I'd argue private security firms to represent corporate interests will likely evolve as nation states become more unstable and insolvent. Next paragraph. Doesn't have to be Russia, though. I'd look at weaker, smaller, more corrupt nations with failing economies. Sri Lanka is a good example. The very concept of Libra DM was a test case. It got shut down very quickly as every major government realized it was a threat to their sovereignty and power. Because, going back to this whole, Facebook even tried to create a full-blown sovereign decentralized corporate nation state with Libra DM. And there's a link to an article that I wrote ages ago, back when Libra was still a thing.
Still a thing.
It's just hanging on. I think they're going to try and push it through. Tell us what you know about Libra, bro.
About everything that you just said. It was going to be like, when they were pitching that, I was immediately going into like the sci-fi I read as a child with corporatized currencies, corporatized access to, survival resources, private, corporate armies. You're basically a completely closed loop corporate nation state was possible based upon my very limited understandings of what Libra was supposed to represent.
That is exactly on point. So just for those of you who may not know,
they're going to chip us. They're going to put a chip in us.
Oh my God. So I'm going to get to why I think that Facebook suddenly pivoted to the metaverse. I'm going to link all of this, but basically, because it occurred to me last night. So Libra, for those who don't know, which is also now called DM, it's Facebook's attempt at creating a cryptocurrency. And this cryptocurrency would take the form of a stable coin.
Yep.
And that stable coin would be backed by collateral assets. The collateral in this case would be corporate bonds. So basically, for every dollar of worth of corporate bonds would be used to issue $1 worth of the Libra or DM stablecoin. And then what Facebook would do is they realized like a huge proportion of the world are unbanked. I think it was at that time 1.7 billion people in the world do not have their own bank account.
I thought it was more, but yeah. Anyway,
but pretty much, most people in the world own a phone or a smartphone. So what Facebook at that time in 2018, God, it sounds like not that long ago, but it was a very long time ago in the crypto world. What Facebook wanted to do was they wanted to basically get their own cryptocurrency wallet in the hands of these 1.7 billion unbanked people. Yeah. Essentially a mobile phone app wallet.
A very unoriginal idea, Facebook.
Yeah, pretty much.
Crypto people were working on that in like 2010.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is the most original guy I know. Create your own cryptocurrencies several years after its launch, get obsessed with creating the Metaverse 20 years after it had already been defined as a thing.
Well, okay. It's not even so much that. So there's full of ideas. There's multiple videos on YouTube right now of people showing how all the metaverse information is actually multiple years old, rebranded, pre-existing VR like products. Everything. Like the entire pitch is based upon these other programs and softwares that have existed for a very many years in VR, and they just basically reskinned it for their promotional videos.
Yeah,
there's not a single original thing in any of the stuff that they were promoting in those videos, in those promotional videos a couple months ago. Not a single thing.
Let me give you the reason why I think Mark Zuckerberg's actually pivoted towards the metaverse and rebranding his Meta and working on this. And it all stems from the fact that Libra, the Facebook Libra cryptocurrency, it failed to launch. The DM Libra thing. So far it has failed to launch. And the reason for this is, so Facebook wanted to get this cryptocurrency wallet into the hands of the unbanked. Most of these people live in developing nations. And they wanted it to be a cryptocurrency wallet for their own stable coin. Their own stable coin would be essentially collateralized, backed in value by a consortium of corporations and corporate assets and bonds. Now, the really interesting thing, is, even though it's pitched as a stable coin that would bank the unbanked and have a stable value relative to the USD, for example, what they had was, the reserves were funded by companies that joined the Libra Association Council. And that was created by Facebook to enable growth of the Libra currency. Now, in order to actually join the Libra Association Council, you had to commit a minimum of $10 million US.
I remember this.
Yeah,
I remember this.
So this would be equivalent to one vote on the Libra Association Council. So if you had the combined value of companies backing Libra as 1 trillion, then technically Libra could issue if the combined value of companies backing Libra was 1 trillion US dollars, then technically Facebook could issue 1 trillion Libra with a value of 1 Libra to 1 USD. So they could, $1 trillion worth of Libra. Now, those companies were backing Libra, and at that time, the association members were companies like Visa, MasterCard, Stripe, Vodafone Group, eBay, Andreessen Horowitz, Uber, and Facebook. They were incentivized to offer services using the Libra currency by virtue of being association members, and to support other companies to accept Libra in exchange for goods and services, or to be involved in conversion to fiat currencies like USD, pounds, sterling, yuan. But basically, what would happen is every time fiat currency was converted into Libra, that would enter the Libra reserve, so that more Libra could be issued. So if 50 million USD was converted by end users of the Libra wallets into Libra, that would effectively grow the reserve by 50 million, assuming a 1-to-1 exchange rate. Now, that new money entering would be then put into low risk investments, so it would actually be used to create further collateralized, assets that would back this, and then they basically validate everything on a ledger. But the problem here is that you have to pay $10 million for just one vote on this thing, right?
This is ridiculous.
So what I clocked very quickly is that if people in developing countries were rapidly switching over to using Libra as a stable coin, then they would stop using their native currencies. And if they stopped using their native currencies, then those native currencies, of those countries would only start being used for taxes. Basically the usage of those currencies dies, the flow of those currencies dies, the liquidity of those currencies starts dying. So those currencies would become worthless because Libra is being used instead. The whole point of a currency, the value of a currency, a currency is a social unit. And I define currency, a unit of currency is a social unit, and the value of the currency is proportional to its usage, which is proportional to its social flow, which is proportional to its exchange flow. So
a lot of people don't think of it that way. Currency could be anything. Currency could be seashells.
Yeah. This is, people think it's just exchange of notes, but actually you're just exchanging units of social value. That's all currencies are. So
units of believed social value,
yes,
I should say.
They're entrusted. So the whole concept, they're entrusted units of social value. So you're trusting that they will be worth what they are in the future. Anyway, don't want to go down that tangent, but basically
that's a deep rabbit hole.
If you stop using a currency, it stops flowing. And if it stops flowing, that currency loses social value and it becomes worthless. So in developing countries, if Libra suddenly took over, then the native currencies of those other countries, let's pick a few developing countries, for example. Let's say, I don't know, Nigeria. No, that's a bad choice. Zimbabwe. Let's say, oh God, I'm really bad at naming developing countries. Can you name me a few developing countries?
Developing countries?
Yeah.
How about
really
Panama?
Small one, huh?
Panama?
Yeah. Panama's a really good one. Really interesting choice. Pacific Islands, they're pretty small. What else?
Well, so I don't know what these terms mean anymore, right? So there used to be, I know this is deprecated terminology, but there used to be third world, first world. I never knew of a second world, right? So unless second world was developing, right? So there was third world, which was just basically shithole is what that term meant, and I don't agree with it. And then there was developing, which is what you're talking about. Economies that are on the move, countries that are industrializing or modernizing. And then there's quote unquote first world, Denmark, Switzerland, US, UK, blah, 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 Japan, right? But I don't think those terms mean anything anymore necessarily, because
I'm not going to do a huge exploration of this, partly for time purposes. But what I'm going to say is I think a developed world is a country that has a well-established, highly liquid currency with a very strong underlying backing economy and well-developed infrastructure and well-developed services, including, social services as well. So, that's my working definition. I think a lot of people would nitpick that and disagree with it, but it works for me. But I'm going to say, going back into what I was saying, you could look at countries like, let's say, Algeria, Libya, Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan. Sorry, there's a trend there. They're all North African. Parts Kazakhstan.
Wait. They're all North African. You mean countries that attempted to create their own petrol-based currency? Sorry, that's a whole other discussion.
Oh, that is a whole... Oh, man, or a currency that was back to a gold standard again. Oh, I am not going to go touch this one.
We are not touching that.
We'll save that for another day. Sri Lanka is a developing country. Anyway, you take basically any country that has a weak economy and a weak currency, and a currency that is already illiquid due to a lack of net positive inflow trade into their country. So basically, what Facebook could do is if everyone in Sri Lanka, say, and this is a good example because Sri Lanka is currently facing a huge currency crisis. Sri Lanka's broke. It's that simple. They have $2 billion
broken countries.
They're pretty much going broke this year, and the situation's really bad there. So Sri Lanka has currently $2 billion of foreign currency reserves in its central banks. It has an interest payment of $7 billion this year alone.
Oh, no.
The situation is so bad. They've basically run out of so much foreign currency reserves that they've had to restrict imports of pretty much everything. That includes various foods, petrol, oil.
What are they going to do?
Well, they're having to currently put up with food shortages, petrol shortages, all kinds of electricity shortages, all kinds of random shortages are currently plaguing.
It's not going to help, though.
No, it's not going to help. They're in a death spiral, their economy right now.
It sounds like a death spiral.
What basically happened in Sri Lanka was because of COVID-19, it shut down all tourism, and Sri Lanka is heavily dependent on on money from the tourism economy to bring foreign reserves in. The second thing is because COVID-19, it kind of sort of handicapped their industry and agriculture, and particularly textile. So a lot of their export, a lot of their industries just shut down for 2 years, and they didn't have the underlying foreign currency reserves or underlying infrastructure or economic strength to really recover from that. And they had really poor government. Like they just have a terrible, horribly corrupt, incompetent, economically inept and uneducated government. I'm not going to pull my punches here. That's exactly what it is to have gotten to this point.
Ouch.
And that's not over like the last 2 years. That's over the last decade or 15 years or go back longer. But Sri Lanka is the kind of country that is extremely well resourced in terms of natural resources, in terms of having a highly educated population, a highly literate population, has so many good, it's an amazing place to live in and be as a tourist, or to live in until 6 months ago. But you certainly, if you're visiting there, you go, oh my God, this is an amazing country.
Yeah, of course.
But their government model was so bad, and yeah, it was so petty and so filled with partisanship and bickering and let's call it nepotism. I think that's a good word to describe governance in that country. That basically they've gotten into a situation where they are in horrible debt that they can't repay, and they're having to now negotiate with a bunch of other countries to try and get some more loans to avert what I think is going to be the inevitable. But my point is that is an example of a weak country. Now, if Libra had launched successfully, and if Zuckerberg's Facebook wallet, whatever this Libra DM wallet was circulating and being picked up and used by ordinary Sri Lankan citizens, they'd all be trading and doing their business using his cryptocurrency, right? Mm-hmm. So then no one would be using the Sri Lankan rupee, as in the usage would go down even more. There'd be even less demand for it. So the government would kind of, aside from paying taxes into that central government, there'd be very little use for that currency. And this is problematic because all of the actual economy, all of the real economic work is now being done in a corporate currency. And in order for that government to have any real say in how that corporate currency functions in that country, they're now going to have to start buying up, they're going to have to start donating their central reserves to the Libra Association Council in order to get votes on it. Remember, one vote is $10 million. So this is what I saw as the inevitable problem.
I didn't go that deep.
Yeah, no,
that's incredible.
So this is what I saw as the natural end point. Basically, Facebook was creating its own centralized banking reserve, is still doing it, that aims to function independently of governments or government oversight. This could easily become the de facto global reserve currency if left unchecked.
Oh my gosh.
And my worry is that this would be entirely privately owned or backed by private assets, i.e. the backing authority would not be a government, but private finance firms and corporations. We've already seen how private companies can malign themselves can malign incentives when it comes to public good via lobbying, union destruction, automation, low wages, exploitative work practices, and drives towards share price rises for the sake of share price rises, even if that means costing fundamental productivity and human rights or decency in business. Governments are valued and defined by their currencies. If the global reserve currency becomes Facebook Libra, then global geopolitical interests will be dictated by Facebook and members of the Libra Association Council. This is much like how the USD is already the global reserve currency against which others are valued. Current global interests are US-led. Rather than shift to a truly geopolitically agnostic entity like Bitcoin or another decentralized cryptocurrency, the success of Libra or any currency model like it would shift instead that power to corporations. So the US opposed this.
Yes, they did. I mean, I remember watching an hour of that, basically Inquisition, and they just drilled them.
Yeah, they drilled them. I remember how hard Facebook were pushed. When we were in San Francisco Blockchain Week, I could see Libra Association or Libra representatives speaking to senators. I was just listening in. They were really trying to get this thing through. But, the US, credit to you guys, credit to the Americans. You guys have a really good understanding of finance, and you knew exactly what the endpoint for this would be. And I'm going to read it out. As for banking 1.7 billion people, to what end? If these people are transacting in Libra rather than their native currency, then their native currency will be used less. There'll be less demand by currency traders, and these native currencies will fall in value as they stop being used to purchase everyday goods and services and instead become used to pay local taxes only. Eventually, corporate lobbying in regions where Libra use is prolific may successfully push to remove this need for citizens to even pay taxes in their native currency, which in turn would force power of banking for these nations away from those nations and towards the corporations and members of the Libra Association Council. Thus, smaller nations with weaker currencies may lose complete control over their fiscal and tax policy altogether. In the most extreme version of this, governments where Libra use is prolific may be forced to become members of the Libra Association Council and in turn may sacrifice their own autonomy, especially if their economic power or weighting isn't significant relative to the other association members. So say goodbye to local government and national interest.
Bye-bye.
In that society. So,
bye-bye. Yeah, exactly. It just would turn into corporate on corporate warfare.
Yeah. It would literally be corporations all like either getting wiped out or joining this council to survive, and then smaller nations all joining this council. And then, I can see why the US drilled it and rejected it, because eventually this thing could become so big, it could just challenge US sovereignty straight out. You'd get a decentralized corporate nation state if Libra succeeded in its form, which it didn't, because its endpoints and motives were just too transparent. The funny thing about decentralized systems is if you understand them, how they work, you can see their endpoints long in advance. And Libra, I think now it's called DM, so many of its executives left or moved on, and the project got downsized and sidelined, and it's still running in its own little way, but not the way it was originally designed back when that first white paper was released.
Yeah.
But my point is, is it okay if I just go back to that topic of discussion?
Go.
So, why did we say doesn't have to be Russia though? I'd look at smaller, more corrupt nations with failing economies. Sri Lanka is a good example. The very concept of Libra DM was a test case. We've just covered that. I suspect the metaverse will be involved. ... Whatever that is. ... So I'm basically what I'm getting at is Libra, DM, Facebook's cryptocurrency, whatever you want to call it, it got sidelined because it met massive resistance from multiple governments and multiple institutions. They all pushed back.
Everyone pushed back. I remember the pushback more than I remember the initial proposal, I guess.
So the deal here is this. It's like, okay, so that's 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021.
Yep. I can't believe it was that long ago. My brain is dying right now.
This is the interesting. I'm trying to get inside Mark's head here. So 2020, 2021, we're all locked down in our homes doing nothing. And he pretty much is too. And he's thinking, this Libra thing that I wanted to take over the world with, it's not really quite working out how I planned. What do I do next? Well, everyone's just kind of sat at home. So, boom, Metaverse. He's been reading Ready Player One. And now he wants to repackage this idea as something amazing and brand new, even though, everyone's been playing World of Warcraft for 10 years.
Correct.
GTA Online or any MMORPG you can name is pretty much stick a headset on, and there you go, meta fucking verse. So why is this suddenly a thing? I want you to think this through. You got any thoughts at this point?
I've really not put that much energy into this. What I saw happening was, I'm pretty sure that for the first time since the company's inception, we saw a retracement of value for Facebook, which is one of the biggest reasons why I think they're trying to do this hard pivot, and they're trying to figure out how to stay relevant for the next 10 or 20 years. And they attempted, they overtly attempted to basically create like the corptocracy of doom through Libra. And thankfully that they met some resistance there because, I think they thought they could get ahead of it. I think they thought, hey, I think we can slide this by a bunch of lawmakers and we'll just hire some of the best people in the world. We'll try to pitch this to get this through real fast. No big deal. Everyone loves Bitcoin. So they tried, but I think that, like you said, like some of the lawmakers, they could smell a particularly acrid odor coming from this idea, and they started drilling them. Right. So I think that Facebook is really recognizing the end of its dominance and end of its trajectory. And like I said, I'm pretty sure they lost users and lost stock value for the first time since the beginning of the company. I think like last quarter. Right. So I see them being desperate and hungry for anything that they can do to try to figure out how to cling to some kind of relevance. And I do think they're correct that they're correct with the assumption that there's going to be a large amount of augmented and virtual reality ecosystems that will get more and more and more popular as time goes on. And I must say, though, for me, from my armchair perspective, I could be late to the game and not recognizing what's happening, but I actually think that uptake of VR has been lower than I thought it would be if you went back 5 or 8 years ago and asked me. And that doesn't mean that I don't think it's going to be a big component of the future. I can absolutely see people going to a virtual office as much or more so as they're going to, brick and mortar offices now. It's just that I'm just not seeing like the flood. And I don't know. I know one person I think that's got a VR headset, and it's like from 2015. It's like the Oculus or whatever. It's ancient, right? I know one person, and that's not to say that among a different demographic than my friends, that it might be higher than 1 in 50 that own a VR headset, even a crappy old one. But it's just I don't see it yet. It's just not. It's VR, virtual and augmented reality, in my opinion, now is Bitcoin in 2010. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to be a big deal. It's just that it seems like it's early. I think Facebook is probably hedging its bet that this is going to be a major component of the next decade, which is why they are trying to buy properties, buy IP, why they're acquiring some of these properties that have existed and rebranding it as Meta, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I think is going on. But that's a very high level perspective.
I actually think that's quite a smart way of looking at it. I want to add to that, if there is environmental catastrophe, if there's economic catastrophe, the two things that environmental and economic catastrophe do is they shut people off from each other. They restrict the mobility and freedom of people to move around the world. So when people are poor, everything costs more. Like perceptually, everything costs more when you're poor.
Yes.
But also, it's like, okay, well, For me, a price of a train ticket to London and back, if I were to buy it that same day, it is expensive to me. It's like 70 quid. That is quite expensive even to me on a high middle income or on a high earner bracket.
Yeah, correct.
That to me, I think it's quite pricey. So there's someone who's on minimum wage, 70 quid. That's like, it's like 2 weeks worth of shopping,
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
So when you put this into perspective, if the cost of living is going up, it hits the poorest the hardest and it restricts their mobility the most.
Yes.
So yeah.
So this makes me think of something. Is there a term for this? So just like you said, there's okay. How do I say this quickly? So there's people living in poverty. There's people that are quote unquote, lower income earners, lower class. I don't like that phrase, whatever. Right. There's a switch in my brain that recognizes a state where there are people that are they're so financially poor but not destitute that they're unable to like level out of their situation. Yeah. And so here's a prime example. What is the term that exists, or can we make a term for people that have an income level so an income level so low that they're living their functional parts of society, yet they can't reach the economy of scale of beginning to level out of that lower income status, whereas someone making just a tiny bit more is capable of buying the electric car, right? So here's a really good example. So when, if you go back in time, like 2017, let's say 2018, right? Tesla was actually selling Model 3s for like $34,000 or whatever. And you could actually buy it. Like it wasn't the high end model, but you could actually buy it. That particular car, so far as I understand, was actually one of the cheapest cars to own, like full stop. Like, it was then, it still is now. And when you factor in no oil changes and you don't put fuel in it and blah, 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 blah. And, and what you do, what energy you do put into it, you're paying 7 times less, for it, a full tank, AKA a full battery on a Model 3 is like, in most US states, it's like $11. I just put 75 in my vehicle. Right. And so you reach this point where people, and we're talking probably a $5,000 per year earning gap, right? If you earn $5,000 less, then you're stuck buying a used car that's crappy, will break down within 3 years or 5 years. It gets 20 miles to the gallon of fuel, blah 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 blah, and like you're almost able to lease the Tesla, but for whatever reason, your income is just low enough that your credit excludes you, or whatever. And you can't get the Tesla, so you can't begin taking advantage of it. But yet the Tesla's still cheap. The Tesla is actually the cheaper car. It's cheaper to buy a Tesla and own it for 5 years than it is to buy a Honda Civic, right? Yeah. And a Honda Civic is like the poor person's Chariot. Everyone's like, oh, this is like, it's a high quality car. They're not that expensive, blah, blah, blah. And yet the electric Tesla is superior. I mean, like I said, these are dated numbers. So perhaps the Tesla game has gotten weaker and the Honda game has gotten stronger. But there's got to be a term for this, because
I mean, you kind of nailed it, though. This is the thing, time is money. I never really understood what that phrase meant until like I started getting involved in cryptocurrency, of all things. But what I'm trying to say by that is, it's like, look, if this journey is going to take me 2 hours by bus. So let's say I make £50 an hour, which is which is pretty high for a lot of people. That's let's say I make £10 an hour. We'll go with £50 an hour, and I work a 10-hour shift. If it takes me 2 hours to get to my workplace and 2 hours to get back by bus, then strictly speaking, I've actually kind of worked 14 hours, because, you're getting up earlier, you're getting back home later. Whereas actually, if I'm only driving an hour, that's 12 hours, which is, much more manageable. And actually then what are you doing? 50 times 14, so 50 times 10 divided by 14 is less than 50 times 10 divided by 12. £500 divided by 14 hours is a lower hourly rate than £500 divided by 12 hours. That's the difference that a 2-hour addition of extra commuting per day makes. So the reality is, for people who cannot afford to drive, if they have to commute to their workplace, they are earning less per hour by default. It's already screwing you over. Being poor makes you poorer.
Correct.
Makes everything you do.
Is there a term for this? It makes everything you do more expensive. Instead of getting health care and health insurance, you have sick care, and you go in only when a problem. I mean, you know all about this. You know, you only go in when the symptoms are so acute they're unable to be ignored, and then you pay 10 times more when in reality you could have just gotten some antibiotics or whatever.
I wish this word existed, and I wish it's a German word. I want to ask Dross, our producer, if it doesn't exist in the German language, could he just make up a word for us?
Yeah, can we make up a word?
Start saying, or maybe that, I don't know if a word exists. I keep thinking of social inertia, the absolute line of poverty inertia, where you're above.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's kind of roughly the concept, but it's a bit of a mouthful. But that's if you're above this line of absolute poverty inertia, then at least you're in a position to work your way out of poverty. Whereas if you're below this line, no matter what you do, your circumstances are such that every attempt you make to change things may potentially just make things for the better, may just make things worse. It's like you're so poor that you've got to work 2 or 3 jobs just to feed your family. Well, you're not going to have the time to ever do higher education or learn a new skill set, because as soon as you stop working to do that, you can't feed your family anymore. So probably a line of absolute poverty inertia, but I want a short, sweet German word that sums this up.
Yeah, it's yep. I would love that, because I grew up in a household that was like that, and I have a lot of friends that are like that, and I think it makes for a really unhealthy society. It makes for a society in which people feel trapped, and everyone, I mean, I don't know what's happening on your side of the pond, but everyone is just becoming really insular. Everyone's just all about whatever new shows are on Netflix, and there's less people going out to bars, which I don't love bars, but at least they were social. And it's turning into like a really weird experience where basically, I'm not saying that it's everybody, but a lot of people are just not thrilled with their lot in life. They don't see any way out, and they just want to do the minimum they can to pay for their internet connection and to pay for their food delivery. And they want to get high and they want to watch freaking Netflix. That's it. That's life. And like, we have a whole generation of people right now.
Let me sum up the danger of this real quickly. If you don't have social mobility, you don't have economic mobility. If you don't have economic mobility, you just don't have exchange of ideas. If you don't have exchange of ideas, there's no flow, so you don't have liquidity. And if you don't have liquidity, your economy falls apart slowly. You always need to have exchange of ideas. This is the reason why the concept of free market capitalism, or just the free exchange of information, appeals to me. And to have the liquid, flowy change of information, and that sometimes requires physical presence. It's like, well, if you stay at home all the time, you might be missing out on so much going on in the world around you. Like, I'm really fortunate where I live. I can do a 20-minute walk. I can see like so much amazing graffiti, like these amazing art murals have just sort of sprung up in the city. They did like a light festival. It's like, I am fortunate to live close to that, so I get to experience that, and I get to experience the impact that artistic experience has on me. But so many people don't get to experience these different things, and we need to experience different things if we're going to grow.
Yep, I agree, 100%.
If you don't have that, you can't have an economy, because you don't have the generation of new ideas. If you don't have the generation of new ideas, you don't create things that people need. If you don't create things that people need, people aren't going to share.
Yep.
It's really simple to me.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, just think of it this way. Like, this is basically my pitch for everyone's least favorite topic or everyone's least favorite concept. And that is like the free market, like a true free market capitalistic model, which doesn't even necessarily mean economic, doesn't mean economic only capitalism. I mean, just raw, I've learned as I'm getting older that the most important thing in almost every situation, almost everything I try to do, diversity is the most important thing. And I don't mean diversity in the way that most people are going to think in their brains. I'm meaning actual diversity, because diversity as typically being promoted as a political ideology these days is actually the inverse. It's actually exclusionary. And so what I mean by diversity is, in my garden, the more plants I have of different types, plants that flower, plants that make, tubers in the ground, the more plants I can put in a tighter space of a greater, diversity of whatever, the healthier my garden gets. The more food I eat out of nature that contains more bacteria and yeasts of different types, the more resilient my gut biome becomes. The more ideas I'm exposed to of all manner of sources or whatever, the sharper my own situational awareness of my own self, my own beliefs, my own philosophy, and my own world will get better. Like, we need the maximum amount of diversity of thought, diversity of choice, diversity of life around us all the time. And there's literally no limit. There's no limit. I quit pulling weeds in my garden 3 years ago. Now, this sounds crazy, right? And so I learned that I could either go out there and I could rip out, I could spend 3 or 4 hours every week for 2 months in a row on my hands and knees, ripping weeds out of the garden. And I could, just because in my brain, I'm thinking to myself, this weed, first off, what's a weed, right? I define a weed as a plant that grows in my garden that I can't eat, right?
Yeah.
So I'm out there pulling weeds, and I'm talking wheelbarrows full, like 10 wheelbarrows every month of weeds, stacked so high when I'm wheeling the wheelbarrow out of the garden, they're falling all over the ground, right? That's how many weeds I'm talking, right? I'm out there pulling weeds, and the idea here is I need to give my plants, all the nutrients in the soil. I don't want these weeds competing with my plants. Well, guess what? When you pull the weeds out, you might be damaging the soil ecosystem. You might be damaging the soil food web. You might damage the mycelium networks that make up the soil food web matrix. You may damage the roots of your plants. Now you've exposed all this soil. The soil dries out faster. Okay. The soil is more prone to erosion. Yes, my plant is not competing quite as hard for every photon that is going to hit the garden, and it's not competing just quite as hard for the nutrients that are in the ground that the quote unquote weeds will be going after. But guess what? Now, if there's a parasite pest, there's the only plant available to be predated upon is my food. Okay. And then what happens is all the other beneficial insects that would otherwise be eating the parasites that eat my food, that live or thrive on the vetch or the dandelion or the clover, are not there because they're on the outside of my garden. I basically created an ecosystem of fragile decline, because not only did I make it almost impossible for the beneficial ecosystem to protect the food that I'm trying to grow, every single square centimeter of a leaf of a weed or food or whatever, every square centimeter of green leaf is a nutrient generator, right? Yeah. So whether it's the plant that I planted that I want to eat, or if it's the grass that's growing near my plants that I would have otherwise pulled out, it's converting photons into sugars with photosynthesis, and it's pumping that into the ground. And so by removing, I was basically removing the Earth's ability to generate its own fertility by pulling the weeds out. And so I quit weeding, basically quit weeding. Now, granted, like if it was a huge weed and it was directly going to wreck a plant, I would take out that one weed or whatever that is. But no. And then guess what? Sometimes I would get a little bit less food. I would get just a little bit less of whatever it was that I was trying to grow. But the amount of input that went into it was like 1/20th of the input. So diversity, it's all that matters, like actual diversity. And I feel that a proper free market, and, I feel that the right to free speech and the right to free thought and religion, combined with the right to a free market, is the best tools we have yet to increase the amount of diversity for, your society. And
I was going to say, funny enough, with your example, just not pulling the weeds out, you're getting more value for less time.
Correct.
And you're getting more diversity, you're getting more resilience. In biodiversity, as in any form of diversity, you create resilience.
Correct. Yeah. It's as someone who's growing a lot of food, it's so obvious. It literally, it's just, I can't even describe how obvious the first time you quit pulling weeds and you just, or you quit like eradicating weeds, but maybe managing them much more minimally, it instantly changes everything. And I feel like this happens with society and this happens with culture. And, have you ever spent some time around people like exchange students or people that were living in another country that has a lot less diversity of thought, at the state level? And then they come to your country and they're like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's so boring on that other side.
Yeah. I work with people all over the world, at least I used to, and I can't even, I send a website to a friend, that lives in China. He's like, I can't open it. And I'm like, what? He's like, I'm on a VPN and I can't open it. And I'm like, this website has nothing to do with anything. Like, this website is not, denigrating your government. It's about like, yeah.
That level of censorship creates a systemic risk to a society because
it makes a society weaker.
Yeah. You overall, you're kind of setting that society up to fail in the long term because you're restricting the flow of freedom of you're restricting the free flow of ideas, which means you're restricting ultimately the free flow of technology. And
correct.
You're restricting the evolution of technology within that society. Technology, by the way, it doesn't have to just be fancy gadgets. It can be concepts, principles, ideas, philosophies, art. There's so many different things that encompasses. But once you restrict it, it's like, well, that society is no longer as resilient to society where creativity just naturally flourishes relatively unhindered, where you have an ego-free exchange of thoughts. And I emphasize on ego-free. It means you don't take things personally. You don't get offended. You explore an idea when you're challenged. If your beliefs are challenged, you take the time to consider the other person's point of view, to really go, okay, all right, I'm going to think about this from your point of view, from what you're saying, try and integrate it into my own world. I think, in integrating it, you develop a richer world, and being non-judgmental and just sort of accepting these are things that exist, these are things that people believe, these are ideas that people have. Let's see how we can put them all together and see how they all work. You just get a richer understanding of life. Whereas
I agree.
Whereas if you're getting really judgy all the time, it's like, you can't do this. No, this is absolutely wrong. No, I'm not even going to think about this. It's like every time you say that, you're shutting off a door to another reality, which means that person can't get through to you, which means you can't hear them, which means you can't understand them. But this is a huge tangent, and I'm going to draw it back in. So can I go back a few paragraphs to what we were saying in that chat? This is how epic, by the way. Thank you. You're really expanding this out. Going to that chat in the Particle General Forum, in Particle Off Topic. In my opinion...
Oh, off topic. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Was it off topic? Yeah. So warfare doesn't have to be conventional in any sense. Economic, currency, and information wars are fought by and between corporations daily. In my opinion, it is only a matter of time before corporations become much more active in conventional warfare contexts. I'd argue private security firms to represent corporate interests will likely evolve as nation states become more unstable and insolvent. It doesn't have to be Russia. I'd look at smaller, weaker, more corrupt nations with failing economies. Sri Lanka is a good example. And skip to that. And I suspect the metaverse will be involved, whatever that is. Now, here's the next paragraph, which kind of ties into what we've been saying. I go so far as to argue that a successful metaverse would be a great vehicle for a sedentary, dependent population addicted to consumerism and consumption. And it goes back to what we were saying about, if you have economic catastrophe or environmental catastrophe, people will become poorer, they'll become more shut in. And going back to what you said about just watching Netflix all the time, it's like, well, that's great. You're being exposed to the ideas that Netflix creates, but it's within a very specific context.
that Netflix is paid to create.
Yes. So, it's very different from stepping out of the house into the bigger world and exploring it and going, we need to fix this. I need to do this. I need to take responsibility for what I can, and that happens to be what's immediate to me. Rather than say, I'm going to take responsibility here, this encourages you to retreat, and then there's that push-pull of morale between the world is falling apart, let me retreat into my shell because there's nothing else to do, or the world is falling apart, let me take control of what I can and try and at least fix this so it's better for the people around me, at least immediately. So now, imagine a corporation that could control our sleep-wake cycle and feeding cycle.
I feel like some corporations are already doing away.
Amazon much.
I've told several people the story that we went, the rabbit hole that we went down with, with first it's going to be the Amazon delivery guy has the keys or the code to get to your house to put your food on the shelf. Then it turned into, there's a robot in your house that puts things on the shelf. And then it turned into, there's, a bigger robot that lives in the hallway of your apartment building that you never leave, that, brings food to you and talks to you and then gives you hand jobs to keep you sedated. And then it's so true.
Or rubs you down below, basically. Let's not be, sexist, but yes, it's true. Uses a vibrator of some kind.
I think almost anyone can receive a hand job. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think a hand job precludes a certain type of anatomy.
Yeah. So, I'm being
or as I like to say, a handy.
A handy. So
robot handies for everybody.
Oh God. It just feels so cold and metallic thinking about it. But something tells me that they evolve.
They'll have warmers.
Nice.
Just imagine like warm, supple silicone heated, self-lubricating robot handies coming to a VR headset near you.
Yeah. I think Mark Zuckerberg would be proud of us right now.
That video that they put out where he was like standing in that space, like, let's barbecue. That was a really weird video.
He was trying to keep it so clean. I mean, if that's genuinely how he thinks, that's so worrying. It's just so worrying to me that that's how he thinks. Like, I'd rather see the unleashed, untainted, uncensored version of Mark Zuckerberg's mind. And if that is what it is, if that's the uncensored version,
I have one quote.
Scary.
I have one quote. I was a human. I am a human. Remember that?
What? What's that from?
No, it was I think he was speaking at a university. Yes, no, I swear. He literally said that. I think it was at a university. I was saying something like, I was a human, I am a human, and like he caught himself after he said it. It was absolutely nuts. I'm going to find it right now.
Okay. So this is what happens when you become that successful, that fast. And you become that detached from society that I'm guessing deep to me, this is, what does he think? He's a god or some kind of robot? I don't know, but that's hilarious. Wow.
So I found it, and it's just, if you just type in Mark Zuckerberg, I am human. Give me 5 seconds.
So he's going through that weird phase of his life. Okay. So I'm going to just be completely upfront. Yeah. Play it.
So I think I can play it by putting the headset to the microphone. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm going to try. So give me a second here.
Yeah.
So I just typed in Zuckerberg, I am human. It's from 2017. And let's see here. Yeah, it's from 2017. I think he was speaking out of college. So here we go. Here we go. 1 second. 3, 2, 1.
But it is going to bother you because you're human, and I was human. I am human still. But
I am human still. Did you get that?
Yeah. So he's in that phase. Oh God.
I was human. I am human still.
I'm guessing he feels he's discovered some profound meaning of life. Oh God. Oh. Interesting. Right.
I wonder if he's a Scientologist.
Maybe we need to take him to a local center and find out. Excises Thetans. That's the one. I'm going to quickly get to that next paragraph because this is where it starts getting weird, right?
Okay.
So the success of the
we
metaverse.
Probably have 10 minutes too, by the way.
That's fine. The success of the metaverse would ironically strengthen the argument that this universe is simply a metaverse we are trapped in which which would explain why capitalism and consumerism has become the dominant paradigm in this world.
Oh boy. Can you read that one more time?
Okay. So I would go so far as to argue that a successful metaverse would be a great vehicle for a sedentary dependent population addicted to consumerism and consumption. The success of one would ironically strengthen the argument that this universe is simply a metaverse that we are trapped in, which would explain why capitalism and consumerism has become the dominant paradigm here. Now, I've skipped something here, which is I was going to explain why I think Libra has been sidelined in favor of pushing the metaverse. I think, firstly, that Libra is going to make a comeback, and I think it's going to be through the metaverse. And I think it's going to be I think they're going to try and push it as the currency through which NFTs are traded.
It's going to be real subtle too. They're going to sneak right in.
So I think in the face of economic and environmental catastrophe, they will push people to enter this metaverse. They'll develop it, evolve it, make it more attractive and appealing. And people who choose not to try and, work in the world around them, who feel overwhelmed, they will retreat to a form of consumerism within this metaverse.
Yes.
Because it'll offer them more opportunities.
Yep.
It'll offer
so many more opportunities.
Yeah, and it'll offer them different economic reality and a different living reality. And we'll probably start getting the feeding tubes and the corporations controlling sleep wake cycles. It's a thing that I think will happen.
So there may be people listening to this that don't know this, but I never make the time to play video games like virtually ever. In fact, if I could just play video games like an hour a day most days, I'd probably have a higher quality of life because it would be a nice disconnect from my usual distractions. But I really, really don't. And every once in a while, when I get like a little habit going, especially in the wintertime, it feels nice and rewarding, but I just never do it enough. Well, anyway, so for some people thinking, there's no way, like there's just no way. I can imagine most people wanting to, put in 5 hours of work doing something in Metaverse, like holding a sign promoting somebody else's virtual hamburger in order to earn virtual money and virtual reality. So that way they can put, like a cat robot that meows in your virtual house, right? But that's going to happen. And the reason why that's going to happen is going back several years from now in the past, there have been video games that like EVE Online, and there have been other ecosystems like Second Life. There have been people that have paid tens of thousands of real dollars just to get custom ships in video games that are not even released yet. Like Star Citizen has been selling millions and millions of dollars of custom ships for people to have that they can't even use, or at least I don't think they can yet use.
Are they on NFTs at least?
No,
wow.
Not at all.
This is where this shows the demand is there.
Correct. The demand, yes.
The demand is there. But can I finish this? This is literally in the text chat of Particle Off Topic channel. So if you want to read the full paragraph, I did
not read it. This is
no. This is to the audience. But the The success of the metaverse would ironically strengthen the argument that this universe is simply a metaverse that we're trapped in, which would explain why capitalism and consumerism has become the dominant paradigm here. Imagine a corporation that could control our sleep, wake, and feeding cycle. It would be so easy to engineer a world so terrible that many people would voluntarily adopt a form of paid permanent stasis in a metaverse just to escape it. Perhaps the Matrix is real. We'd still need a way to find a way to pay for it. So perhaps the Matrix is real. We'd still need to find a way to pay for it. Maybe this reality is even, here's the last mind-blowing thought. Maybe this reality is even the imagination of a complex AI subroutine that evolved to keep it entertained and occupied while the majority of its processing power was used to serve its creators in some other real world, inverted commas, with a real world. Thoughts? I'm basically saying...
There's a lot there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically saying I think the reason Mark Zuckerberg's pivoted to Meta is because Libra and DM failed in its current incarnation, won't get pushed through.
Correct.
But he can create his own alternative universe, a virtual reality, and then push his own cryptocurrency there and then link it to a ton of NFTs. He can run a corporation. I mean, in that scenario, you know, I could see a bunch of corporations actively pushing for greater poverty in the real world, actively pushing for environmental destruction in the real world, because it would draw more people into this metaverse. And then I can see this metaverse just becoming a real consumerist capitalist landscape, which in many ways is reflective of the world we already live in. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I guess people will escape into it, and maybe people will find ways to be creative within that. So I'm not saying this is all bad. I'm just saying this is what I think it is, or this is what it is.
It's okay. I was
going to also say, if it is that, then who's to say that we're not already in a metaverse, and that
we're definitely in a metaverse,
we've forgotten, and that we're in one, and that, you know, maybe when we die we'll get unjacked and wake up.
So think of it this way: we're already in a metaverse of sorts, but the difference is it's only a one-way communication medium. And so for the people that I know that have a job they don't like, they don't make enough money to get out, to break through the poverty, the inertial poverty quagmire, right? What is that? IPQ?
Yes.
the inertial poverty quagmire.
Yes, that's much better. Yeah. The IPQ.
They can't escape the IPQ, and so they get takeout, they go home, they get high, they get drunk, they watch Netflix for 6 hours, they go to bed, wash, rinse, repeat for years. Okay. They're already kind of effectively in a metaverse, but the difference is they're taking advantage. They're sipping the straw on a unidirectional information stream. Okay. Like photons and sound waves between 20 hertz and 20,000 kilohertz are coming at them, and that's it. So in a way, I actually think that for those people, putting on a headset and going into VR chat is ultimately a richer experience right off the bat. It's already a level up. They're already leveling up by entering a world that has two-way interactivity versus just consuming Netflix paid partnership advertising slots, advertising, cigarettes to children and whatever the hell else is going on that they do all the time, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just consuming this one stream, they can put on a headset and enter a richer world and actually interact with other people, even though they're just running around with a giant, genital shaped, sword smacking other people's avatars. At least it's a two-way communication stream, whereas they don't have that right now. So in a way, I actually think that the metaverse and or VR chats and just, it's Facebook's trying to coin the term metaverse, but it's really, what that really means is Facebook's own virtual reality system. Yeah. It's kind of like calling a tissue a Kleenex or something. It's like, I don't really want to, people are using the term metaverse to just describe this new virtual landscape, when I feel like that's giving Facebook brand recognition that we shouldn't give them. But especially that they don't that they didn't even start. They're just kind of stealing it by buying up IP, which I guess isn't stealing, but it's a little different. But anyway, for the base level user that's otherwise just consuming, bought and paid for ideas and advertising and products via Netflix. And by the way, like I've seen a couple of Netflix shows, it's really bad. It's like damn near like Wendy's advertisement. Like they almost say it, right? It's so obviously bad. And I'm really sensitive to that kind of subtle but not so subtle advertising. But so for those people that I know that are living that lifestyle now, a VR headset is probably an immediate life enriching upgrade right now, which is crazy to say. And if they want to play Beat Saber and they want to get some exercise or something like that too, it's an even bigger win. And then they might make friends that live in Sri Lanka. Right.
Yeah.
So in a way, I feel like I'm actually quite supportive of this idea right off the bat. And it's really easy to get hung up on all the immediate negativities of it. It's going to be another fight, man. Like here we are. Like the reason why you and me are doing this show right now is because we've been long friends who care deeply about decentralization, increasing the diversity of options across multiple regimes, right? And we both also share a passion for creating, difficult or uncorruptible free markets for ideas and goods and services, right? This is why we are talking. We're going to have to figure out, as much as we want to be like, crusty old men, get off my lawn. These kids are, the kids are lost. All they want to do is smoke the reefer. As much as as we get older, we're going to feel that tendency to fall into that headspace. We have to take this fight into that regime. We're going to have to figure out how to take the same fight that we're trying to do right now, but while supporting increased diversity of options and thought and beliefs and politics and free markets. We got to figure out how to take this fight into the VR space. And, I think a lot of people will. I mean, what I've learned in the past 10 years is that gamers just want a game. But if you poke them, it's like poking a bear. And when they wake up and they're not happy with being poked with, they can hold their own pretty well. But it takes a while to build up that community. So I don't know, like I don't own a VR headset of any kind. And the last time I used one was in 2018 and it was actually pretty fun. Although I got seriously motion sick on this like stupid roller coaster game. I'm not, I feel like people are going to hear what we're saying and just feel like it's all negative. I don't think it's all negative. I also think that when, as we get older, being confronted with a new, so for example, TikTok, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have TikTok. I know what it is. It looks like yet the most invasive, yet the most controlling, yet the most like insidiously, subtly manipulative piece of software literally ever written that is hyper addictive, like designed, $1 billion has been spent to make sure you never leave that app once you open it. Right. So those are all horrible things to me. On the flip side, I've seen as many TikToks that I thought were abjectly positive to a crazy extent, either at like promoting humor, promoting diversity of thought, promoting mental health for people that are in stressful situations, etc. As I've seen just like, people doing dumb shit. Right. And so like anything, I'm the generation that I remember in the 90s when there was a big push in America to try to ban certain types of music and art. There was kind of a conservative wing of government at the time, and they were going after rap and they were going after death metal. And I liked death metal. And they were basically saying that this type of like hard or extreme music was, radicalizing people or making people more prone to violence. There was no scientific basis to make this claim. I still don't think that there really is, or if so, it's only tertiary and very minimal. And so, and as a result, I feel like, in fact, I feel like the people that were into this stuff actually are the ones that have the more balanced, nuanced, healthy view of reality now, 25 years later. And so the idea that we know what's better for the younger generation, or we know the harm, we can accurately predict the harms or benefits, I think is ridiculous. And so, I mean, for example, what do they call the newest generation of young adults right now? Are those Zoomers? Is that what they're calling them?
Zoomers? I don't
So
know.
so
What's
there was
after Generation
millennials.
Z? Is millennials then Generation Z, or is it Generation?
No. Millennials are already like becoming adults, and now they're already like, millennials got sucked, like late Gen Xers, Zennials, and millennials all got corrupted by Facebook. That's like all my friends.
Yeah.
Like they whatever is on Facebook, they think is real, and it blows my mind. And oh my God, it's horrible. But Zoomers, I think the oldest Zoomer would be like 26 or 27 now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look this up really fast. Well, anyway, so my friends, who are late Gen Xers, or, like early to mid millennials, they were the ones being like, I'm not going to let my 5-year-old have access to a phone or a tablet. And then I'm not going to let my 7-year-old have access to a phone or tablet. And then when the kid's like 12, it's like, you get 2 hours of screen time a day. Now, I understand what they're trying to do, right? I understand they think that this is corruptible technology. It's going to like rot their kid's brain. But the thing is, they can harm their child just as much as they can help them. And I'm seeing people that are now becoming adults that were, I'm able to see the children becoming adults of my friends that acted this way, and they don't have a fucking problem with technology. They never did. The ones that like could have as much screen time as they wanted versus the ones that were not allowed to have screen time at all. In fact, the ones that had the more restrictive childhood are the ones I perceive as going to be struggling more, right?
Yeah, because they're less adaptable to the modern world. I mean, it's funny you're saying this.
Correct.
Correct. I remember being a kid playing around with all of the early internet, being in my early teens, being into computers and stuff. It's like, okay, I already understand how all this stuff works. And so, 10, 20, 25 years down the line, it's like, oh, this stuff's actually really useful. Like, it helps me understand everything that's emerging. So it's good to engage with these new systems and actually understand how they work and why people use them, and to see what you can get out of them. Because at the end of the day, as you said, it's information, it's free flow. Yeah, there are downsides to these things. You have to be aware of what sorts of systems you're using, and you need to be aware of what price what you're potentially paying or giving up in return to use those systems, or what the trade-off is. You need to be aware of what the trade-offs are. But at the same time, as you said, there are positives to all of these systems. But it's when you use these systems and you'll just think they're all blindly positive or blindly helpful. If you carry with you a certain edge of skepticism or cynicism, or at least an awareness,
and humility,
yeah. If you're aware of other people's motives, you don't necessarily have to be suspicious. You just need to be aware. That's just a thing. That's why people do this. You don't need to be judgmental. You just be, okay, this is the way some people work. Then it's much easier to engage with these systems. Maybe you're thinking, maybe I should just reinstall Oxygen OS on my phone. No, I'll stick to Lineage.
What?
Nah, I'm joking. I'm still on Lineage. I'm not about to re-Google. But
oh my gosh, no, please don't.
Funny we're talking about this. It's like, well, because I don't have geolocation services on my phone in the typical sense. I'm not sure Uber will work on my phone. And currently without a car, now I kind of, there's a scenario where I might actually need Uber tomorrow morning, or at least
we have to figure out how to come up with alternative versions of these services, dude.
We need more diversity in the Android ecosystem. You need more genuine diversity that's actually not utterly dependent on Google. And same with the iPhone ecosystem. I'm not going to lay it out. We should have open source equivalents to the Apple technology.
You're going to love this. Yeah. You're going to love this. So you directly inspired me to begin my de-Googling journey. Oh, yeah. And I have next to me, okay, I'm not going to tell you how many days it's been next to me. I have a phone next to me that I haven't even peeled like the paper screen protector off of. Mm-hmm. And it's been here for a little while, maybe like almost 2 weeks. But it's sitting here next to me, and I have a tab open about how to install graphene, and I just haven't done it yet.
It is going to do it. You're using that on, right?
Yeah, it has to be a
cool.
Pixel
Yeah,
phone.
yeah, it has to.
So what the hell, Google? This makes no sense. I did some research, and I actually think that doing what you did is probably better because you get to use a much wider variety of hardware, and you get to But I did some research, and this is just me talking out my rear. So just no one crucify me if I'm wrong. I think that of all the phone manufacturers, I think that Google or AB or Alphabet or Do Evil Corp, whatever their name is now, I think that they are easily middle of the pack to better for promoting quote unquote ethical practices for the manufacturer of their phones as part of their contract, at least middle of the road or better than average. Two, the dollar per hardware power is quite high, not the best, but certainly in like the upper 80 or 90th percentile. The hardware is very good. The microphones are very good. The cameras are very good, and they're coming in at like mid phone tier pricing, right? You can get a brand new Pixel 6, which looks to me like it punches in like the like the A territory right now, is half the price of other flagship phones. It's not quite as good, but it's real close, right? And because Google's made their phone, Google is contracting out these phones to be produced to be used globally by any carrier and any OEM. They're the only phones that I'm aware of that you can buy completely, fully unlocked. I'm not just saying carrier unlocked, and like I'm talking like firmware, boot, and carrier unlocked all in one. They're completely unlocked, and they have to be, because if a carrier is going to lock them to a network, a carrier needs the most lowest level ability to lock in the phone to whatever they're going to do, or install their own OS or whatever, right? And so it's just like, and then because they're so unlocked on the hardware level, you can very easily wipe them of software. And interestingly enough, they even have other details that have a higher degree of privacy feature sets at the hardware level than most other phones. So what the hell?
I was going to say this.
It doesn't make any sense.
The Pixel phone, the actual hardware behind a Pixel is really good. Is better than most other Android phones from a privacy perspective. And the makers of Graphene OS acknowledge this, which is why Graphene OS only works on Pixel.
Correct.
Because that is the most secure hardware. And, sticking graphene is probably, the superior, the security solution from that point of view. So, I mean,
but like I said, I am going to try this route because it seems like one, I was forced to get a new phone because my prepaid carrier no longer supports the older phone that I have.
Yeah.
And any day now, it's just not going to work. And I wish that wasn't the case because my old phone is okay. I mean, I'm getting about 2.5 years out of a phone, and I wish it was 3 or 4. I'm consistently being forced to upgrade phones, not because I want a faster phone, but because
software,
they're broken or the tech is changing. Yeah. Right. And so, I wish I could get 4 years out of a phone. I still know people running around with like iPhone 4s, like the tiny one. And I'm like, man, that's amazing. Like, I wish I could do that. But building homes and building things and farming, I break phones also. So yeah, anyway, it seemed to me like, knowing how little time I was going to be able to devote to this, that going with graphene on a Pixel was going to be the
fastest option.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually got a really straightforward installation process. I wish we were getting paid by Graphene or Google right now for saying this, but we're not. Just full disclosure, we're not sponsored by anyone. Yeah, carry on.
Could you imagine if we ever had sponsors? What would that be like?
Oh my God, they'd be yelling at us all the time,
nonstop. Like, I can't believe you just.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that about being in an AI subroutine. You'll give the game away. You'll unlock like the Zeta Corporation, and then everyone will have to jack out all of a sudden.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Imagine that.
Just going. Oh yeah.
No, just really think that through for a sec. So here we are. Future advertising is going to be not based upon clicks or click-through ratios. It's going to be based on jack-on, jack-out ratios.
Yeah. God.
Yes. It's not just did you leave this virtual space because the advertising pissed you off? Because that's going to be like level 1 bad. It's going to be, did you jack out of VR entirely? And that's going to be like the cardinal sin. And if you have, it's going to be the exact same thing as if you have like a credit card and if you do more than 3 scams per 100 transactions, you get your credit card cut off, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the same thing for advertising in VR.
Right. I don't know. I just feel like, it sucks so hard that you jacked out. I feel like someone in marketing at the VR firm is going to get fired. But I mean, by the way, so this is why we called, this episode, is the metaverse a metaphor for fractal capitalism? It's just the idea that, in a failing world, people will retreat into a virtual one. But then within a virtual one, if you have an open community, there's every possibility that people may not perform well in that community. And in that metaverse, people may build a metaverse within it. And then naturally that will, kind of people go into that world and it will have its own advertising. So it's this idea of fractal capitalism. We may just keep creating universes within universes within universes, layers of, I guess, I don't know, is it escapism or discovery or exploration? I don't know what the word is, but people will keep jumping into these new universes that we'll build. And within those universes, there's every possibility that we could keep building new ones. It's like simulations within Minecraft's a simulator, but people build simulations within Minecraft. So, how far does this go? And to answer your question, that's where the idea of fractal capitalism comes from, is in a sense like the cycle of consumerism and capitalism is almost endless if you want it to be. But
I think we have to call it. We've been going for an hour and 50. You know that?
Yeah, but it was a great show, man. I mean, if you think back, we just discussed a lot. We even came up with that term, the what was it? The IPQ. What was that?
IPQ.
One?
IPQ. Inertial poverty quagmire.
Yeah, IPQ. What a great term. Yeah, I just hope we get more people listening to this. I mean, these are, and as you said, if we have to plug into a VR world to spread these messages, let's just do it.
Oh, can you imagine? That is going to be...
I'd rather just have an automated AI avatar that just plugs these messages on my behalf while I go ride a go-kart somewhere, but
A friend just said in a chat to me, instead of IPQ, he said, don't confuse it. Don't accidentally say ICQ. And I thought to myself, oh God. I spent like a decade on ICQ.
Oh gosh. Wait, what? ICQ, internet? What's ICQ? This is like a chat thing.
Does it still exist? Let's see here.
I keep thinking of IRC for some reason.
No, does it still exist?
ICQ.
ICQ, there's a new one. Let's see here. ICQ, initial release, November 15th, 1996.
Oh, man.
Yeah. At its peak, ICQ had 100 million registered accounts. In 2010, there were still 42 million users. 2013 had 11 million monthly users. It was just a chat program. As a chat program.
Yeah.
I used it all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
By the way, do you know Bulletin BBS services are still a thing?
Yeah, I did use those a little bit.
I mean, it just blows my mind, the resilience of some of these systems.
Oh, yeah.
But that will be a topic for another day. Oh, by the way, special nod. I remember last week we said we'd talk about Scan for Change. I'm pushing that forward to next week, maybe, just because this topic was super.
Did you say scam for change?
No, Scan for Change. Oh, God.
Oh.
God. Well, I mean, now we've got to act with the utmost integrity. Otherwise, there's really snide diss right there for us. Gosh.
That's so funny.
Fine. I'm going to close with this final thought. My bladder is full from having drunk Monster for the last hour and a half, and now I really need.
I had some coffee, and I do need to satisfy this mortal requirement that you speak of, and then it's sunny out. It's actually 70. 5 degrees inside. It's pretty warm because the sun came out, and my house gets pretty warm if the sun's shining all day. And I am immediately going to gear up and go out to the high tunnel. People call them greenhouses, but they're actually high tunnels. And I'm going to plant probably 100 potato plants and some salad greens, and then race back inside, clean up, and get ready for a meeting. That's what I'm going to do right now.
Wait, is this the meeting we're doing at 7 p.m. or is it a different meeting?
Different meeting.
Fine. Cool.
Now I want to know what you're doing at 7 p.m. later.
I'm going to be having a chat, 7:30, like a chat with CryptoGuard and TV.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. We've, everything is interlinked.
Interlinked.
Yeah.
Interlinked.
Everything is interlinked. Everything we
interlinked.
Talk about. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, you have a good one, and I'm going to race out and try to plant some potatoes because as everyone knows listening to this, the world's a crazy place and governments are getting frisky with each other, which does not make me happy. So whenever governments get frisky, plant potatoes, people. Plant potatoes. You can grow them inside. They're easy to grow. Plant potatoes.
Self-sufficiency. Good night.
Plant potatoes. Good night. Good night.